Oh wow!
Yeah.
Getting
Wow.
fancy here.
All right.
Plus white, so it looks
just wanna-
really, like,
So now it's a race issue.
no, not a race issue. No.
You ready? Is it going? Are we live? We got audio? Yeah! Hey, everybody. Welcome to Massive Chalice Teamstream number 23. Thanks for joining us. We're going to be talking about the music here in just a minute. But first, we've got Dan McGarry over here hanging out.
Hey, Brad.
Going to be playing the game. This is going to be sweet. So we're just going to have you starting a fresh playthrough. And after we're done talking about the music, we're just gonna kind of let you cruise and do some commentary on like what you're doing.
It's super fresh.
And just play. It is, yeah, right. Well, you just made the Steam build like 20 minutes old. So who knows? Like zero smoke testing on this thing. So
YOLO.
great. Like hopefully it doesn't crash. Yeah. All right. All right. So hey, thanks, Dan. We'll be back to check in on you later. Hopefully we'll be able to see that later when we come back. Also joining me, as always, Anthony Vaughn, producer. How's it going?
It's going well, man.
Yeah.
I'm feeling it. I'm excited for today.
We don't have a mic for you, so you want to yell into my chest?
I'm feeling it.
Yeah, okay, good.
Whoa.
So Anthony will be taking your questions, as usual. It'll be awesome. I'm also joined by studio audio director. Is that close enough?
It's pretty good.
Pretty
enough.
good.
Yeah.
Brian Min. Hey, Brian.
Hey guys.
Thanks for joining me.
Hey, it's good to be here.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the music.
Yeah, hell yeah.
You ready to talk about it?
Yep, ready to talk about it.
Okay, sweet. So we're also joined by our musicians, our composers that we have hired as contractors for this project. They're super awesome. I'm going to introduce you guys right now, and hopefully I don't mess it up. So this is Finishing Move Incorporated.
That is correct.
Is your incorporation. So Brian
In America.
So Brian Trifon, Brian White. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Triple Brian.
Yeah,
baby.
look at this. We're surrounded by Brians.
Like, really, it should only be Brian.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
why these guys.
Yeah.
We could just be doing.
I feel like we
this.
should put you on the red couch, and we just got Brian's.
Yeah.
Brian's for days.
Yeah.
But so we're gonna talk about the process and like how we hired you and stuff. But I kind of want to hear about like how you got started, like in just I don't know as musicians and then also how you met.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'll start. So basically, I started by doing. I worked with a composer in LA. His name is BT, and he's an electronic musician. And I worked with him for years as like a synth programmer, and then I toured with him and stuff. And eventually, kind of had to move on from that and moved up here.
Why did you have to move on from that? Because you can't be a synth programming touring guy forever.
Yeah, I just wanted to. I was basically, you know, you don't want to like. You want to start your own thing and like do your own music instead of like building someone else's, career. So, yeah. So then I started on my own, make music as Trifonic, and then
which is super awesome, by the way.
Thank you.
Everybody should check that out.
Yes,
it's super
buy
great.
his albums. Go
Thank
do
you.
it.
So basically, with that, then I realized it's like, oh man, okay, well this is great, but it's hard to make a living, and I really like video games, and I've worked to picture before, and so I started to transition into working in doing music for games and things like that, and so it started as doing subcontracting for other composers. So I worked with like Jesper Kid on Assassin's Creed 2. And then I worked on the Halo Anniversary and a couple other things. And then Brian's always been like a really good friend of mine for like the last 8 years or so. And so we started working together on a bunch of stuff. Basically a year ago or a little over a year ago, we're like, we should just team up and just dominate. So that's what we're trying to do. I'll let Brian describe what he does.
World domination.
Very straightforward.
Yeah.
Team
Yeah, that was the plan.
World
Yeah,
domination.
just team up.
Yeah.
We'll dominate. It'll be fine.
Yeah, it'll be great.
Sweet.
Yeah, good times. Yeah.
Yeah, so I started playing music when I was, I don't know, like 5 or 6. My dad was always in bands and stuff like that. He actually owns a music store in the hometown that I'm from, so I just grew up sort of like in a studio, in a music store, like working for slave wages, so for family business.
That's kind of sweet though to be immersed in it, right? Like
yeah, no, I mean
it's
it's
all
great.
around you all the time.
I mean it gave me the opportunity to. I mean, I would play like 8 hours of guitar a day, just because I was just sitting waiting for, people wouldn't come in for like 4 hours. And I was like sitting at the counter, the small town music store, like selling reeds for band instruments and stuff like that, and like band books and things, strings. So I just sit and just play and write music all day. And we had a little studio and just experiment, and just got really familiar with just the whole music recording composition process from a really young age. And then I actually went to school to get a business degree because it was a little bit of a I wasn't allowed to go become a musician. I had to have some sort of you have to go to school for something real, and then you can.
And then he threw that all away.
I threw it all away.
Threw it all away.
So after 4 years of school, I decided, this is kind of BS, and set out on what's now been, over 10 years as a working professional, producing music, engineering music, mixing music. I've pretty much worked in every segment, from making music for commercials to mixing pop records, working on salsa albums. I've done
awesome.
writing songs for Vietnamese pop stars.
He's in a music video that's awesome too.
I really like that track that you wrote for Brian Min's his follow-up record. Actually,
What?
was really incredible. Just that, really pioneering the Asian music scene.
That's where it's at, man. You know what I mean?
Brian Min, Asian pop star.
Three.
That's where this white track jacket.
Love it. I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm wearing this.
No, it looks awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
You really do look like a.
Yeah, thank you very much.
An Asian pop
Yeah,
star right
that's
now.
really what I'm going for.
Sorry
Ladies.
to totally derail that. Please continue.
No, it's all good. And then we actually we met up because he needed a job, and
Because I'd spent all my money.
I used to own a school in San Jose called Future Rhythm, where we did Avid certification training. It's like Pro Tools certification, sort of a production school. He needed a job. I needed a teacher for the school, and
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's
we
cool,
met through a mutual friend that I'd been making records with for a couple of years, and I needed somebody that could learn how to teach the courses quickly, in a couple of months, because we kind of had a radical personnel shift, and he totally saved me.
That's what they call it in business school. Radical personnel.
No, it was.
It means everybody effing quit at the same time. Oh God, we have a radical.
He's like, I need someone to teach Pro Tools. It's I don't know how to use Pro
next
Tools.
month.
And then he's like, I'll teach you. You can do it. I was like, all right. So cool.
That's amazing.
So yeah, and that's and then we started working together and started working on projects together, and like I said, it was beginning of 2013. We officially sort of teamed up, joined our bank accounts, put our money where our mouth was, and set out to.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Make stuff awesome.
And then this isn't the first time we worked with you guys. We on Dropcord, our mobile Leap game. It was Leap and it was mobile. I didn't work on that game. Here I am trying to plug one of our games, and I didn't even work on it.
No,
But you worked on it.
Yeah, I did.
And you hired these guys to do one of the key tracks for it, right?
Several, half the key tracks, and so that's how I think I met Brian at a barbecue. Yeah, and then I've known about Brian, Mr. Trifonic, for a while. One of the things that I try to do at Double Fine as audio director is to really get to know the local composers around here, local musicians, and also Double Fine is transitioning from a single project to multiple projects with multiple project leads, with each game having unique sort of identity. It was important for me to have sort of a catalog of great composers, but not just that, local composers that I really felt I could believe in, and that we can support them, and that we could meet up. And so it just happened that we met up, and by reputation, and we've heard, I've heard some of his tracks, and it was outstanding, and it brought something new. And for Dropcord, it so made sense. And I know they were busy with other things, but they sort of took sort of a kind of a chance with us being a small developer. And it seemed right, and they did an amazing job on that project. And so, you know, knowing their musicianship and what they can do, it's always kind of cool to be able to get them that local stable of composers, and we can pitch them on other projects and see how it is. And Massive Chalice is a unique kind of a story, right? Because, you know, here was...
I totally want to talk about that too. Like, the process for this was, you know, you talk about building up like a catalog of composers. Like in the past, like I think Peter McConnell has done music for like all of Tim's games.
Sure.
And he did like working on Iron Brigade. Like he did the music for that as well, and it was super great. But yeah, it's like it's good to have options and more people, just because like we get a lot of like critical dates all piling up on each other, and we don't want to like overburden Peter McConnell. So we were like, hey, like what if we open it up? And we did this like open audition. Is it an audition? That makes it sound weird. That makes it sound like you guys came down and like did like a live performance for us.
No, I mean
we asked for pitch. Just like and what we asked for were like 3 30-second cues. And I just kind of like wrote a couple paragraphs, and we kind of worked on that together of just like, hey, like this is roughly what we're looking for. The biggest thing that we were looking for was just like music that is squarely out of the like fantasy box. You know, like we didn't want Lord of the, like take the box and you've got Lord of the Rings and Diablo and World of Warcraft and I don't know, any sort of orcs and elves fantasy thing in that box, and it's like, you know, the big like orchestral score with the, you know, like all the sort of like cliched stuff, and it was like, okay, we don't want that, we want something else, but we don't really know what we want beyond that. And it was sort of a like, surprise us, like you know, bring us something that's like new.
I want to touch upon that because, so, you know, the relationship, the relationship that we had with the Finishing Move and the two Brians was that, you know, they were really, you know, well-known EDM or electronic dance music kind of DJ-like composers. They were like unlikely kind of candidates for this project, and so initially they were not on that list. It was just a, you know, group of really well kind of versed composers, and I just thought, in fact, we know that you were saying that you weren't even going to pitch.
Well, yeah, we got we got the invitation to pitch. We're like, this
seems
all wrong. Like this seems like absolutely like a project.
I totally did not know this.
Yeah, no. So because I was like, you know, is because we read the description and I was just imagining like fantasy music, and I was like, they want some Lord of the Rings, and like that's not what weird.
It was Christmas time too.
Yeah,
so
it was like the end of the year, the holiday, and so
Yeah.
like we had a long conversation. Like, do we want to spend the time to do a pitch?
Yeah,
Because it's like Christmas time. I was about to go on vacation. So but then so we decided, we're like, let's do it.
And I just thought that for some reason, well, a lot of times people get too caught up in the rapper. Not rapper like rap, hip hop, but like the rapping of how music gets tailored. You know, you can sort of like know a particular song can be marketed towards country, pop, dance, whatever, but the core composing musicianship is always there. And these guys just had that essence there, you know, beneath all the electronic stuff. I knew that they had the ability to create something original and unique, and that's always been their language.
And that's super interesting hearing you guys say that, and that was something that Brian had told me, Brian Min had told me, that like, a lot of times, even though we're like I'm typing out like, we do not want Lord of the Rings, like we want something that's like not this, it's still the fact that it's a fantasy game, and a lot of times it's like, well, you know, do they really not want Lord of the Rings? What if they just gave a small twist on Lord of the Rings and then give it back? And some of the composers did that, and it was very high quality, but it was just like, you know, listening to it, we're like, wow, this is in the box. You know, it's like this is in the box, and hearing you guys say that too, it's like that really kind of confirms that. It's like, you know, like it's like we're asking you like take risks, but you know, you, like as a you know, a potential contractor, like, you know, it's like, can you even trust the people who are asking it? You know, it's like,
because I mean, a lot of times, like when you like people say like, oh, we want something really special that's never been done before, and then
they really don't want
and then you like, that's never ever what they want. They want like, they want Hans Zimmer, like that's what they want, you know, and it's like. They're like, you know, and it's like always like, oh, we're going to do something that's never been done before, this combination of this thing and that thing, and then it's like Hans Zimmer. So
and so I think the bottom line was, I was really interested in working with people that were in the business of like creativity, right? It's just, we're all in the business of creating stuff. And it's just that I knew that underneath their language that they use, which is EDM and electronic synthesis, I knew that at the core of it, they were about creating original sounds, and you're really well known for that. And that's how I kind of sort of approach, like, Brian, especially, and Trifonic and all of his music tends to have this kind of like original palette, and so that's a good thing. And of course with Brian White, I know he has very talented, but his production value that he brought in terms of his mix skills, because I just saw that this thing popped really, really well, and so it'd be a good addition to the mix. So it was sort of a last minute pitch, really.
That, like, I'm hearing this secondhand through Brad, where like, I was listening to it with Brian Min, like the latest drop, and Brian was like, I don't know how the hell they mixed that. Like, I don't know what that was, but that's awesome. Like, so that's pretty cool.
Yep, it is really. I mean, they just, they bring the kind of like, it's a partnership, truly. It's not about this one direction feeding, like, hey, this is what I want, and then you end up, sort of like the cabinet maker that's just making it. We're in the business of creating new things, and I think you just end up limiting yourself too much if you end up it's all being funneled one way. And so I really definitely felt that it was a good partnership where we can listen to you and do that. And when we said we wanted something new, we really meant it.
Yeah.
And it was super rad. I remember we listened to I think we had like 10 different sketches. We listened to like all of them, and none of them were labeled, so I didn't know who I was listening to.
Yeah, we did a blind.
But I remember that your guys was first. Like we listened to it, and I was like, damn, that is outside the box. That's awesome. I was like, I can't wait to hear all the like wacky stuff that we're gonna hear. I can't wait to hear like all the original stuff. And then a lot of it was like very in the box, and it was like, oh man, But we just kept coming back to like the your guys' submission, and we were like, awesome. So I thought we'd go through and listen to the submission, and then talk about each piece of the submission,
sure.
And talk about and then play the final sort of evolution, like where we're at now.
Yeah.
And like we're kind of like winding down. We're getting close to like the final stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought this would be cool, especially for
play the
all
strategy layer,
all
right?
the viewers. Yeah. So this was the first one we listened to. So we asked for three different cues. One for the strategic layer, like when you're looking at the map. We really wanted that one to sort of be like the main theme and be the thing that carries like a lot of the emotional weight of like the timeline and things like that. And then we asked for a snippet for the player turn, like during tactical when it's your turn, and then a snippet during the enemy turn on tactical. So we're gonna start with just the strategic one. Let me see if we play this. Hopefully everybody can hear this. Okay, sweet. So, so immediately I think of the three, and we'll hear the other ones in a minute, like that was the one that really stood out to me in terms of like just carrying a lot of emotional weight and just sort of being the, when you've got that, I don't know, the like 10,000 foot view of the whole kingdom, and you're looking at this thing, and it's just sort of like there's a certain like wistfulness to the music and like longing in those, like I love those whole notes on the piano are just like they're just, I don't know, there's just a lot of room around them as well. I like that they just sort of like, they're just sort of out there, and I don't know, it's awesome.
Yeah, and that's not fantasy music. I don't know what that is. I mean, that was just definitely, and maybe you could share a little bit about what you were thinking when you pitched that. Like what happened? What was your process?
Yeah, I mean, I think for that, it's like, I mean, with Brian and I, we wanted to do something that wasn't of like a specific musical time period. That's not like, okay, this is fantasy classical music, or this is like 80s music or whatever. So just to combine some different, like there's the organic sort of piano sound, and then there's layers of organic like pads that are electronic in some ways, but they're very natural sounding. You can't tell like what instrument it is, but it has this flowing quality. So it was mainly just going for the feeling and trying to capture the emotion and distance, like for the strategy layer. What else do you think?
Yeah, and I mean, just one of the first things that I remember about the premise of Massive Chalice was that it was going to take place over like longer than a person's lifetime. So you would have this long period of time. So you couldn't, if you think about how music would exist over, even 10 years of somebody's life, we didn't want to sort of like, oh, well, it's going to be this Baroque, because it's this fantasy. It's
sure,
like, well,
sure.
Well, no, it's not always going to be yield.
It's like 100 years
times,
later, it's not going to be
like
that.
200 years later,
That's an
who
interesting-
knows?
that's an interesting
So
note
it's like the time,
yeah.
like, how can you make something that has strong themes, but isn't necessarily, time specific, that could be, work over a longer period of time and not sound too future, but not like, oh, this is some really old, chamber music kind of thing.
I love how the piano really grounds it, and it has that, gives it an organic feel, but it I don't know, it does feel timeless in a way as well. Yeah. It's really, really cool. Mm-hmm. And so for this one, I don't know, I mean, our direction, we didn't really give much direction on this one. We were just like, this one's really awesome, so yeah, just let's turn this one into the main theme for the game, and this is, and you guys just delivered this very recently, and so this is going to be our kind of main screen, title screen theme music for the game.
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Oh, thanks.
I mean,
This is
sounds. Sorry about the TV speaker, but it sounds amazing. And
It sounds awesome
Yep.
through the TV speaker.
you know what? When it still sounds that good through a TV speaker, you're doing something right.
well, that's the kind of that's I mean that's just, they know how to mix. That's one of those things. There, that punchy drum thing is just something that we all try to strive for. So
It's super great. Yeah, I couldn't be happier with how it's evolved and sort of become the main sort of musical theme for the game. It's really awesome. So yeah, so let's move on to the next one. So this is, see, now that I've said all those good things, we get to play the so this is the tactical music, and I think that there was a bit of a miscommunication on this one. But we're gonna play it and we're gonna talk about it, and I also really want to thank you guys for being open to playing the stuff that might necessarily not work. Yeah. We do that all the time on here, and here we go. And yeah, so we we felt like that one didn't really fit the heroes running around in this tactical thing, like fighting demons, and like, you know, it was
like a massage music.
The thing that's great is when
really relaxed.
When we came and met with Brad, he's like, so what were you guys thinking when you did this piece of music? And you know, we kind of, I mean, not in like, oh, what the hell are you thinking? But like, we could tell that it wasn't like as positive as other things. And so, I mean, but we both are kind of like, well, I don't know. Like, we didn't really know. Like, you know, it's like when you read a paragraph about something,
yeah,
you're not really sure. And then for some reason, we just thought that it was like a mellow kind of vibe during the player turn. Like, because this is before we'd seen anything. You know, it's just a written description. So, and we're probably listening to Brian Eno and like just into that vibe. And it's, yeah.
A lot of people on the Twitch chat, this guy Aaron Skins, he's like, give that to Space Base. That's perfect for Space Base.
Oh my God.
So could carry over.
Yeah, so it's just some, you know, like that. It's just some chill music. We had some like weird vocal stuff in there too that like isn't even in that version.
I think we were also. I think there was sort of when you're doing a pitch, and you're going to give multiple pieces of music. There's always sort of you can kind of go one direction where you're sort of like, here's our statement. It's all sort of this. It's, you know, make it or break it. It's either gonna work or it's not. And then there's also the sort of like, I mean, I think what we were kind of doing with a few of these pieces was like, let's give them a range, and maybe one of them will really resonate. And so, I mean,
that's really cool because they're all very different.
Yeah,
they're all three of them are very different.
And
you'll see, especially when we get to the enemy one, they all do have their own sort of like feel to them, and I think that's very cool.
It's like, how do you express your range as a, you know, you've got, let's say with this, we had 1 minute and 30 seconds to express our range as composers to you guys. And so it was like, how do we, even if something wasn't necessarily perfect, how can we communicate that we were able to take things in directions that they may not know us for, you know, or
especially, you know, just to like tail off what he's saying, like, you know, the other game, Drop Chord, was all just like dance music, and so we wanted to show that's like, you know, we have like actual real music background. Like, I mean, like,
because dance music is not real music.
Well, no, I mean, obviously it is, but I mean, a lot of people don't look at it like that, and so it's like, you know, it's like he has like his whole life playing guitar. I have a degree in jazz guitar that was a waste of money.
Yeah,
no, but it's like, you know, it's more than just like synthesizers and all that.
Exactly, and we knew the kind of the range underneath that. There was this fundamentals. You can just, you know, I have a music degree as well, and, you know, music composition degree, and I understand, you know, some of that, you know, there are people that...
Oh, I have like 3 music degrees as well, it's fine.
We're a fellow. Well,
classic piano.
I was dovetailing on the fact that, you know, the whole weighing of whether it's useless or not. But going back to the piece about, you know, how, you know, there was something that didn't work, one of the things that, like, in our RD group, we try to do this too. It's about, and this is something that my hero idol, Edwin Cadmal, talks about a lot in his book. And he talks about the ability to fail safely in a creative environment.
Yeah.
And one of the things, and this is not no joking matter, this is really critical. I think
you failed safely.
Yeah,
we definitely failed safely.
You want to feel like because if you don't, then you can't be creative.
Yeah.
And so that's hard. That's something that is always a struggle, I think, no matter what, because there's so much at stake. We want to succeed. We want to do well. But in the business of being creative, at least that's kind of the thing that we want to exude, especially with composers. Like you should have some sense of freedom to be able to fail without being chastised for that, you know, mistake. Because then if you're not trying new things, you don't have originality. You can't create. And so I'm a firm believer in that. And so that's a good example. And I'm at least recognizing the fact that Brad understood that high level, you know, imperative, which is just that at least they deliver something with range. So, you know, just that,
and that was very cool. That was, I think, a really attractive thing about your guys' submission. And then, so when you came in and we were talking about, like, you know, we talked to a couple people where we really liked their submission, and we were like talking to them. Immediately, we were like showing you the game more in depth, and you're like, that doesn't work. They're like, you're like, no, like, sorry. Yeah, we get it now. Like, we have a bunch of ideas, like, cool, and we were just like, you know, a lot of it is just like a trust issue too, is that like you see it, you guys saw it, and you knew that like you were like, oh yeah, this is the wrong vibe, like we got a bunch of ideas. So we just kind of mainly just like let you run with this thing, and this was the first version, and this is mostly there have been a couple of iterations since this one, but this was the one that you guys came back with for the player. So this is on the player turn when there are enemies visible and you're actually engaging with them.
I think that was the one you submitted, and then we had some of the other thought process or workflow that we do is that you deliver a big stack of stems, which are for our viewers just not just the one piece of music, but all the parts that make up that piece, and we're playing around with how much guitar to put in, and some of the stuff, there's actually this really cool electric part that you put in. I mean, that's where your degree is not a waste, my friend. But,
yeah, that was actually him playing it.
But
so
a gift to the
wasted
world.
my
Okay,
degree,
I
but
think.
not a waste
It's a
of
gift
his.
to the world, my friend. The gift
And
of music.
That's another thing that I think is cool is that it doesn't. You guys, we were kind of going back and forth on this one of like how much plucked string should be in there and all that stuff, and just hearing like it doesn't sound like just a standard acoustic guitar, and it doesn't sound like just sort of like a standard drum kit or like a standard sort of symphony drum, not a drum set,
Just a
in a symphony
percussion
with
set, yeah.
percussion section in like a symphony or something. It has like all these things are like, I don't know, sort of like ethnically ambiguous. It's just like
Yeah.
like you don't know what, and again talking about the timeless feeling of the strategy layer music, like I think it really has that same vibe. Like they really line up nicely together, I think. And so how many different guitars are in there
Yeah.
playing together? It's totally ridiculous
no,
how they're all
instruments
stacked up.
in general,
No,
right?
it is ridiculous. Okay, so there's a Thai dulcimer called a Kim that's in there.
Yep.
There's acoustic guitar. There's a charango, which is like this, like I think it's a South American, like double coursed little mini guitar thing. And then I also record the acoustic guitars at I record them at 192 kilohertz and then pitched them down an octave so you get the super high quality
sure,
pitch
sure.
shifting.
Yeah.
And then
Awesome.
so then you get this lower octave that sounds
Yeah.
like an upright bass.
Yeah.
He played electric guitar, like
electric
all the
guitar.
drum.
I
drum
love the
stuff.
electric guitar that's in there too.
Yeah.
I feel like that was very hard to hear because it's a little bit understated.
Yeah.
And I think it's some of the mixes we've been playing it up a little
Yeah,
bit more. On these speakers, it was I was really having a hard time
No,
hearing
it's
it.
that
but
muted electric
It's got like a
thing.
welcome to the jungle kind of
Yeah,
vibe.
no,
It's
it's
super cool.
Yeah.
Like I hope that they could hear it on
it's
the stream.
It's
because
a little
really,
riffy.
really
It's
cool.
a little riffy.
It's
in there.
awesome, and it really. The other thing I love about this track is that it has this like back of the beat, very deliberate sort of like it's just like got a really nice groove to it that matches the like when you're playing and you're hearing it because it's a turn-based game. it just matches the deliberate deliberate pace at which you like play the game.
Yeah.
It just has this really
it's that
good
triple feel, that really cool.
It's super great.
Yep.
Like I really like it, and I feel like it matches again with the main theme and with like the way that you play the game, the pace of the game.
Yeah.
It just works well.
And to
awesome.
plug the soundtrack or whatever, when we package the music up, like that's something that we will do. Is there's a version where I just have just the electric because it was so cool. And it's just an unlikely kind of thing because I don't know why every time I listen to electric guitar in sort of this cinematic environment, I always think of this Star Wars episode where the episode 1, I think, where John Williams had like some weird electric guitar in the middle of a Star Wars. It was so bad, you know. So like that could never work. But here, you know, like there was a version where it's just electric, and the percussion with the bass guitar. It sounds super aggressive. It's badass. It feels like the kind of combat music that you just don't hear in games, and it doesn't feel fatiguey. It's just simply fantastic, and those kinds of unexpected kind of cool things, you know, hopefully we can you know, create all those alternate tracks for our backers to hear as well, and for everyone, because it's super interesting, that creative process. Well done.
Yeah, was there anything else that you guys wanted to talk about? Like, I feel like we talked about it way more, and you guys made the damn thing. So like, is there like, and that one also was just like, you know, so you were in the, you know, squarely out of the Brian Eno phase, and just like you'd seen the game, and you're like, okay, like this is the thing that you made, and it's awesome. But like, what was sort of your process when you were thinking about this?
So usually the process, so in this case, so just the differences between Brian and I is, so he's amazingly talented and works extremely fast. I like focus in on details and kind of work pretty slow. So this piece, he like basically sketched out the entire thing, and it sounded awesome. And then what like we say internally, what we do is basically he gives me this polished, awesome thing, and I take a dump on it and ruin it by like adding 50 layers of guitars, swapping out all his sounds with different ones that don't work, and I ruin the mix. And then I give it back to him, and then he has to like fix it, but through that actually like filtration process of back and forth, it ends up something better than like what we could each individually do. And it works. It brings out both of our strengths of like, you know, of like form and structure and efficiency. And then like I'm really good with sound design and detail and like unique kind of sounds, but I can kind of get lost in the weeds. And so then he pulls it back into focus. And so that's kind of how we work together, the process of that.
That's how a lot of the pieces, I think, well, on this specific game, manifest. I would sort of start and sketch out a structure with some of the core melody and rhythms, and I'll actually, like, I mean, just having worked with him for so many years, I know when to just sketch something out and sort of like, I know that he's going to destroy these sounds and replace them with something totally different.
That's awesome.
So I mean, I know sort of going in, I know not to sort of spend too much time on certain things, and so I'll sort of, you know, like with this piece, I'd spent like a day or two sort of getting sort of a rough idea, and sometimes I'll just use kind of just really, I won't really think too much about the sound. I'll be like, oh, I want a kind of a string, a pluck sound, and a piano, and some of this percussion, and then I'll kick it to him, and he'll like really do up sort of the sound design and the strings, and then I am like super particular about percussion and just the way it sits in the mix and the way the whole mix sits. So everything always comes back to me, where I'll then generally redo all the percussion and all the drums, and then also at that point do the mix and get everything sort of cleaned up, and then we'll. At that point, it's funny because just on this specific one, with all of these sort of the gameplay pieces, they started kind of like, you know, our delivery spec was around two minutes for each kind of this little moment. And so I kind of had something, you know, I usually always we always go over a little bit. So it was like, oh, I do like 2.5 minutes, and it'd come back from him at like 8 minutes.
Yeah, I like, so it was like an 8-minute piece. For like, and then he's like, dude, this is really, really, really long.
And so then we'd edit it, and then I'd sort of edit it back down into something that was like, okay, let's get to the point. So back down into something that was more manageable. But I mean, actually, you know, like that sort of works well, because when we go to, you know, we delivered, like, there's like in addition to that, there's like 4 alternate sort of mixes that for those, and so having sort of more material, you can kind of like pivot and build, and so it can kind of keep things staying interesting and you know.
Sweet. Okay, let's jump into the third one. So this was during the cadence turn. This is what we wanted the music to shift. So when you end your turn, and the enemy start moving on the map, or they start moving in the fog of war, like this was kind of like the third cue that we asked for. So I'm gonna play this.
Like science fiction, like punching somebody in the face, like riding a motorcycle over their face. Yeah, and so it's not, like now knowing Massive Chalice a lot better than when we were pitching, like, it's not, that's also not really appropriate. I mean, it's cool. I like that piece.
Yeah,
but
I think even one of the comments was like, "Oh, it's like kind of sci-fi." Was what was the game?
It felt very Mass Effect to me.
Yeah,
like that was yeah, and like I remember talking about it where we were listening to it, and just like I said, this was this was maybe the second cue that we had listened to with this one.
It was randomized.
And we were just
by the
like,
way.
yeah, it was totally randomized.
I had Paul basically randomize the track, so I didn't even know who was what.
Yeah.
And we're listening to this, and we're like, holy crap! Like that is really outside the box. That is like
this is wrong.
Yeah, that is. You can't even see the box from here. It's like it's in
those
another time
Bartok
zone,
strings
man.
too. Those Bartok like.
So I really like those
Sure.
sort of choppy Bartok strings. Is what
I don't
they're
know.
called?
Is that what?
Yeah, what would you guys call it?
It's
It's like the slap. Bow slap
you
thing,
used to-
Bartok slap
yeah,
thing.
it's where you take the bow, you reverse it, and you hit the wood part out of it.
And I really liked how
some people hate it, but some people love it. It's a very love-hate kind
Brian
of thing.
Min kind of hates it.
I generally hate it just because I'm a classical guy, and that's what.
It can be corny. It can
Well,
be,
yeah, that's what non-orchestral guys try to make their tracks more orchestral by putting those things
Sure.
in, and but it's fine. I think we have a mix of that's different, but yeah, it's fine.
I like how just how aggressive and like in your face those were, and like I also like how the rhythm it feels a little arrhythmic.
It's
the way
an
that
odd time
not
signature of the
arrhythmic, that's
hits.
not right, but just an odd time
There's a
signature. The way that it
syncopated
hits,
hit to it.
it's sort of it feels unsettling when they happen, and you just can't really predict like mentally when they kind of come slapping in. And I thought that was very cool. And then just the fact that the synthy stuff was like so outside the box, and it really was, and it was weird. Like this was what we were looking for, though. Is something that where and then again bringing you guys in and talking to you about it and being like, hey, like maybe like what do you think if we rein that shit in a little bit? And you guys, and I remember Trifon, it was something you said. You're like yeah, maybe we could tone down the face ripping synth, like take the face ripping synth out of it and like get something more organic in. And we're like, yeah, like sweet. So So this was where it ended up. Let's see if I click the right one. I think
Actually,
this
that's
one.
I think we still have that one, but yeah.
a lot of
yeah, and the ones that
and
and I think the Bartok strings are still in there, but there was a version that didn't have it. There's a version that we just had just the percussion.
You made a couple really good. Well, we even made ones that we were like, oh damn, that's better than
we like the versions
and that's been really cool actually that you guys have delivered like the full session with like all the stems and stuff, and then Brian, you've been just like making like all these different mixes.
It's
like
so fun, and I feel guilty for just like
it's interesting because it's basically taking this like really complex, like super stacked session of like all these different instruments, and you've been sort of reducing it down in different combinations, mainly to try to fight fatigue.
Yep. Sure.
Like if when you're just sort of sitting there and you're taking a long time to make a decision, we kind of want the music to like back down, get out of the way, and like take some of those more melodic instruments away, so that you're just like, and some of the reductions that you've done have been really great, like on the Tactics music. Where
we like them better than what we turned in.
They're just like these really, just like exposing just the underlying percussion and like just low level, like low synthy stuff that's going on, and it's so successful. It's awesome. It's great, and I just like that we have so much. Just because that session is stacked with so many instruments, we can take that 1-2 minute track and stretch it out, in all different kinds of ways, like all over the game, and just really make sure that you're not just hearing the same combat music over and over and over.
Because I mean, their idea is to just like pitch this dense thing that we could work with.
Yeah.
But the pacing of the game is very different, and so I'm on the ground with you. And trying to really understand what the game is, and so
we're on the ground, we're in the trenches. I just pictured you like with the radio, like calling for air support,
and like, so there's that translation. So how can we make sure that we keep the integrity of the music, but at the same time be aware of the pacing of the game? Which I think a lot of games these days they miss that. You can tell if it was just an awesome soundtrack, but you just drop it in there hot. And while it's great, no matter how amazing it is, if you keep hearing it over again, or if you just do it without the consideration of the pacing of the game, you waste a lot of great music. And they're giving me this incredible asset to work with, and just sort of being the translator. So I can't really take credit, other than I think I'm just giving you another fresh ear to basically expose the very thing that you guys are already doing, which is just fantastic. Because we can be shy as creatives, and sometimes this is an amazing track, and then we add things to maybe compensate. We're like, no man, that one guitar thing that you recorded, or that bass thing, is just incredible. Like, we should just expose that, and then have Brad sign off on it, and then it usually it's
awesome.
It's
what
great.
were so with this track, like what it was in a very like techno kind of space. And so, like, what did you guys add? Like, what was your thought process on taking this and trying to get it to line up with the other stuff? Because I feel like it really does. It feels much more cohesive than like the original submission.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. The first thing we did is removed like the gnarly synths that are inappropriate for it, and then also like the big sci-fi drums that are like futuristic drums, like, and then we're just trying to think, how can we keep the energy and the general feeling of it, but replace that with more organic sounds? So, whether that be guitar, or there's like some prepared piano stuff in there. And then just like electric bass and drums, but just try to go for a more natural sound, but keep the same kind of energy and the same sort of rhythm to it.
I think one of the things that kind of we were thinking on this one in particular, and just on a lot of the cues, was that we wanted to add sort of a sense of sort of ethnicity, but not specific ethnicity, like multi-ethnic, because I mean, you're going to have these different keeps in the game, and there's sort of built in, there's these sort of different groups, and so we wanted to kind of have sounds that felt ethnic, but it's not just like it's just Middle Eastern, or it's just sort of American composition, or it's just Asian kind of inspired sounds, but there's things that kind of pique your interest that are like, oh, well, that's not like a traditional rock instrument or a traditional orchestral instrument, so that it kind of brought out that kind of.
It's like, and to do that without sounding like Yanni, or it's like that's because you can get into this bad world fusion thing, and it's a fine line. So it's it's trying to bring that, but not go into the cliche too much.
And I don't mean to credit Brad too much, because he always gets a lot of credit, but I have to give him some credit. you know, he really definitely, I think, oh no, Anthony rolling his eye. I have to do this because, you know, Brad spends a lot of time considering the music, and a lot of project leads don't. Or they put too much trust. I think Brad has a really good sense of getting involved as much as he needs to make sure that the game is really solid, but, you know, lets us also do our jobs. And that's a really difficult balance. And I think when you're successful at that, you get results like this. A fantastic score that really supports the whole theme and the feeling of what it is, and it just captures. I mean, it just hits it out of the park. And I think it's just, I'm really proud of what you know, the Brad's leadership and you guys just bringing it to the way it needs to be, and just super awesome. I mean, it's in my iPod, you know, and that's, you know, very few composers that I hire ends up on my iPad list, and so it's a really amazing score. I'm really proud of it, and Brad definitely has kind of the vision to balance that between, you know, getting involved so that he doesn't just let us run wild, but also letting us do our job, and that's a difficult thing to do. So good job.
If I had a 36-hour day, I'd probably be all up in your face. So
thank goodness for 24-hour days.
No. I think it's awesome. I mean,
it's
you guys have really done a great job, sort of like just creating something that's not your typical fantasy. Like I think we're very far from orcs and elves, but it still has you know, a vaguely medieval but, you know, ethnically ambiguous vibe to it. And then it has that like electronica underlayer to it.
There's modern
like
elements, there's
really
guitars,
awesome. And then that you know, when the electric
man.
guitar comes in. And I think we have it set up now in the game where once you've killed like 2/3 of the enemies, you know, you're like trying to clear the level out. We sort of switch into this more like victorious kind of music. And that's like where the electric guitar like gets layered in, and it like shifts it a little bit. It feels really good. So like, yeah, I'm super happy with like where we've ended up with like the music for this, and I think it feels iconic, and it feels like we're, you know, we're accomplishing what we set out to do, like to make something that's like not your typical sort of fantasy orcs, elves, dragons kind of thing. You know, it's like it feels like its own thing, and then the music really helps it give it its own identity. You know, mixed with the visuals. So. I thought we would take some questions from the viewers.
Yeah, I've been asking.
Thanks, viewers, for viewing.
By the way, if I'm yelling a little bit, it's because I'm not mic'd, so I'm not a crazy person.
Just wants to yell at us.
Brad, don't be up in the questions, because there's an order here. This
all
is
right.
real.
How about this?
That's just awkward.
Yeah, is it?
I don't know.
Are you sure?
I can
into
smell
it
your
bit.
cologne. So. Let's pick one of these guys. I have no method to this.
Okay.
All right. So WTH Hero asks, how does seeing gameplay change the way that you approach making a piece for the game? Like, has that been a major factor for you guys?
Oh yeah. I mean, you know, I think it's just seeing the pacing of it and what it looks like, especially versus like doing a pitch where you just have a description. It's totally different, because once you see it, there's a certain vibe just aesthetically, just visually. And even the way that it flows, and that definitely informs the music. So I mean,
typically, like how we would approach, you know, using the gameplay footage. I mean, and every composer does it a little bit different. But I mean, what we typically do is we'll watch the gameplay a couple of times and just kind of without music, and then we might try to just kind of play some music with the gameplay and just kind of see, like, not that we're going to go and take and replay that music, but just what tempo and mood wise, like, because you could be really surprised at, like, oh wow,
like
that's
how
like
things play against
this,
picture,
and especially like if you want to do something that's like, oh, this is a little more cerebral about how like sort of the music fits with the gameplay versus, oh, this is very literal, you know, kind of thing, and so we'll kind of like, you know, temp stuff out to kind of get us an idea in our head, and then, I mean, kind of put the gameplay away for a little while and just work on some ideas.
Are you guys doing that
it.
like as guitar players? Like, are you just both playing guitar when you're like looking at that, or like what do you typically like?
Sometimes, but a lot of times it's just like going through just music, and it could be like artist music and just things that we're like, oh, what
listening
are
to
some
people's
vibes
records and just
Oh,
watching.
sweet. So you're just
like
I thought
yes.
when you said playing music, I thought you meant like actually like you're just kind of having like a jam session, but
No.
you're just like playing either your stuff or stuff that you like or whatever,
Yeah.
and seeing how it fits like with the visuals.
Like
and
being
just
like
sort
a
of-
music supervisor would be for a TV show where they're like, oh, let's see if this band, what it sounds like, because it's different. Like you try things that you wouldn't think would
wouldn't-
work,
yeah.
and you put it up against picture or up against like gameplay footage, and it's like, wow,
Wow,
that's
like
really,
that vibe
really
is
cool.
really-
And then you can make a note of like, not that, oh, I want to rip off this piece of music, but like the tempo of this, or this feeling that this piece has. And
The density,
because
just sort
the,
of,
the mistake that I know both of us have made in the past on things is if you just start writing immediately, like you watch something and you just start writing the first thing that comes to mind, you have a much higher failure rate of like that you can spend a lot of time and something doesn't necessarily work. But if you get a sense of like, okay, these types of pieces sort of work, and I like these things, but like I don't want to rip off this other thing, and I don't like this other element of it. But you find out what works, and you spend like a whole day doing that. Like then when you start writing, the success rate is really high.
It's similar to what they do. I mean, they do the same thing when they're scoring films or TV shows. They'll generally temp things in and then kind of figure out like.
But it's usually not you doing the temp. It's
no,
usually,
there's a music director doing
yeah.
the temp, and
that sometimes is a bad thing because you might not.
You
got to
get
so. For us, it's like we're playing our own personal music director.
See, that's actually really interesting. I think that distinction I think is really, really important because we deliberately, being the music director hat, we deliberately try not to do that.
Yeah.
But as the content creator, that's an interesting work process, and that could be very helpful.
Yeah.
Right on. This is so Tysonification asks, where do you guys look for inspiration when making music for video games? I guess you kind of touched on this, but like outside of games,
yeah.
where are you guys drawn from?
I mean, I guess it's really everything. Both of us are music junkies. I mean, it's like whether it be, every week on Spotify when the new releases come out and they have their playlist of what's new. I spend a couple hours every Tuesday just listening to music.
That's awesome.
And a lot of it's just pop music or whatever, but just to get a sense of what's cool. And then I'm real deep into electronic music, and then everything else too. It's just like consuming as much music as possible for any context, not really worrying about what it's for, but just anything I like, anything that's well done.
Yeah, I mean, I think something that's different kind of about us as composers is that we're, not there's anything wrong with just sort of composers that are just composers, but I mean, we both actively pursue artist albums and writing and things like that. And so we're sort of kind of wearing two hats always, kind of thinking about being original as people and how can we write music for music's sake that we want to release and just have out there as records, and sort of allowing. And then the composer side, which needs to be just a little more buttoned up because you're working with a team and there's there's considerations, awesome. And there's other you're writing for content. It's not just to make yourself happy, and so I think those two sort of sides of the brain, or those two personalities, can feed off each other, and I think that kind of gives us a lot of inspiration. Both ways. It's sort of bi-directional in that regard because we can pull from, let's say as artists we can pull from some of the discipline that it takes doing composition on projects, and having to follow a schedule and having to sort of structure, your process so that you're actually getting stuff done and not sort of lingering and dwelling on things for
5 years.
Five
5 years. In a queue for a 30-second. Yeah.
So
exactly.
I think that's kind of at least
that's
for
very, very cool.
me. Yeah,
that's cool.
So that's really good. I have a couple more questions that are really good. Aaron Scanti asks again, what are your guys' favorite? Do you guys have any favorite theme songs or soundtracks from games?
Let's see. I actually really like the Far Cry 3, the music in that. And I'm not to hate on Brian Tyler, but I'm not usually a huge fan of his work. But I actually really like that score.
He did that one.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I
own one of his albums.
I
hate to admit, it's the one with when he is his white suit. I forget what. Knowledge of
that's
self.
where this comes from, huh?
Yeah, no. I can't pull up the frosted hair that he's got.
Oh no, that's yeah. Well, I guess there's different BTs that have that, but Brian Tyler, he did Fast and the Furious, or the Iron Man, or not. I don't know if he did Iron Man, but whatever. But anyway, Far Cry 3, I like that a lot. I really like Limbo, like that, which is almost has a minimalist sound design score, but that's the best ever. I mean, like that. That's probably, I mean, and it's kind of an anti-score, so I feel sad saying that. But like Limbo is probably my favorite game score, and some people don't even realize that there's music in it. Like they don't.
Martin Stig Anderson.
Yeah, that's
played that.
Like I feel like
awesome.
That's the best. Yeah.
I really like Last of Us. That
Oh yeah,
kind of, like
Gustavo.
super,
Yeah, that's so
minimal
good.
thing.
So
yeah.
good.
I really like
good.
the old. I mean, for me, it's sort of the games of my youth, like the SquareSoft, like the classic Final Fantasy, Chrono Trigger. Like I don't know, those are some of those
like the SNES
melodies.
era stuff.
Like where
cool.
like they really had a limited toolkit to work with
yeah.
sonically, but kind of making just these memorable things that stick in a teenage boy's mind forever.
It's really incredible.
It's
with such a
insane.
limited
like,
constraint
with just like
set
there's
of
nothing.
tools.
Yeah,
like,
Metroid too, dude.
Yeah.
I was just that was serendipitous
that
right
changed
there.
my life.
Yeah,
Metroid.
I still remember the theme. It's that minor major thing that they did.
like boop, boop,
Yep,
boop,
exactly.
boop. Yeah,
Super awesome.
That's so cool. And even Super Metroid, the Super Nintendo one, that was
I can play that theme right now for you.
Let's go do it. Yeah.
Just
do that.
Fuck the mother brain. Okay, so I guess I got a bunch of questions, so let me know if you just want me to stop. But you guys touched on this earlier, but can you maybe elaborate on this? Shadow Man asks, did you guys play all the instruments yourselves, or do you sometimes have other musicians come in and do this with you? Is some of them sound banks? Can you describe a little of that process?
Sure. So in the stuff that you heard, that's all us playing it, everything. There's some stuff that wasn't played where we hired a violist to play.
what a perfect segue.
Oh, okay.
I just pulled this.
I
I just pulled this down
There you go.
because I thought it would be awesome to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
So you guys, one of your friends is plays the viola.
Yeah, his name is Niels Boltman, and he's an incredible violist and a good friend of mine. And so I was just like, I called him up. I was like, hey, dude, we're working on this really cool project. We have a lot of creative freedom, and I really think that what you do would be fantastic. So we had him sort of play some of the melodies and arrange sort of viola parts based on some of the themes that we did. And yeah, I think it turned out really well.
And this is super cool because this is we had we wanted to have the main theme. There's a variation of the main theme that we use just when you're looking at the strategy map on the strategy layer, and we wanted to have an alternate version of it for when you zoom down in and you're at the human scale,
Like indoor.
at the keep. It's like our
Indoor version.
alt mix of that same theme. And you guys brought up this viola thing, and we're like, that's awesome because it gives you a more sort of personal thing. So it's
chamber
really like
vibe,
like taking those big that piano melody that sort of sits over the whole thing and feels very epic and stuff, and replacing that with like a warmer like viola track and stuff. And so this is pretty new too. Brian and I haven't really sat down and like listened to this together yet, but it's pretty cool. Hopefully I grabbed the right one.
That's the stuff.
Oh, nice.
That's the stuff that I love. Just the second half, but just the fact that you can. Well, I'll let you guys talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, so with that, it was basically just, I mean, it was cool for my friend Niels because he did like, you can hear there's multiple parts happening, so he sort of was acting as his own string quartet, overdubbing, to just sort of get that intimate vibe.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
It's super awesome, and I just like that, you know, we still haven't hooked it up yet in the game, but sort of going back and forth, like we want to make sure that it's not jarring.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
But just being able to go from the more epic piano sort of thing, and then zooming down in, and I think that we have some like sound effects and stuff to help us with the transition, but then going into that just like viola, like indoor, when you're just sort of like looking at the family and you're looking at the chalice and you're looking at all the things that, you know, I think it's going to be really effective, just for like switching between the 10,000 yard view down into the 3 yard view or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's going to be really, really cool.
I mean, aesthetically, you guys captured what that is. You know, you have one is epochs and 10,000 whatever years, centuries, and then here that's the chamber intimate, you know, few years, you know. But there's that melody that ties it together.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a couple things just that is so interesting because that theme is so strong that you can translate to any instrumentation and it stands its own, which is so important for any kind of thematic material. And so it proves that it works well. And then the other parts are fantastic too. Because again, I think you're playing to the understanding that in games, unlike linear medium, you know, we have this long periods, and then we want to
sitting for 5 minutes.
Exactly,
10
we want
minutes.
to we want the accentuation to really be, you know, something.
And there's a lot of layers. I think you've probably seen. Like, you created these different layers that you can bring in and out, so that they all. It's like really hard to break the mix. You could mute everything but one layer, and
it sounds good.
I mean, that's one of the things we try to do is make it like with the stems. We want to make it. It's like really hard to break. You can have just one element, a few elements, and it's still going to sound interesting and rich. It's not going to reveal anything cheesy or
buried
weak
bodies
or
in
yeah, exactly. That's right. Exactly.
So, last question. We've heard a lot of tracks, and having heard all these from our friend Solar Blitz, who's a common guy, always shows up here on the thread. If you had to choose a track for the trailer for Massive Chalice, loaded question. Is a tough. I mean, it's not loaded. I don't have an answer.
Yeah.
But what would you guys? I guess for all you guys, what would you guys vote? I mean, this has a nice. You can see this being like some cool, like that, like the viola piece. That's like the Halo, you know, kind of piece. The really, you know, muted but sad but not sad kind of thing going on. But you also have the traditional stuff in the in there. What are you guys thinking?
Probably the main theme would be good. It's got like, I mean, and we joke about it because it's like, not to diminish it all, because we really like it. It sort of has this like Twilight kind of vibe in the best way possible. Yeah, there's a post rock.
It's got like the guitars and the drums.
Yeah,
and it's kind of got a
it has some energy
sound
and like a vibe to it. So I feel like that would work well.
I feel like we're talking about doing. I don't know if we should talk about this. Our like trailer plans and stuff. For sure. For sure, like the launch trailer, we use that main theme to like just really hype people up. And
depends on what kind of trailer it is. If
we're talking about
sad trailer,
or do you need the dubstep trailer? Because we can do the dubstep trailer.
Definitely a dubstep trailer.
We should totally do a joke dubstep trailer with like the
none of this
scope
stuff.
headshots in it and stuff. It'll be awesome. But yeah, for like a teaser trailer, like I think that viola track would be really, really good. Like we're talking about having it be just like real.
We've got some great Derek,
teasery and you know, very serious and stuff. And like I think it would really fit.
And Derek's concept art stuff, like fading and you know, some other goodies. But yeah, we want to save that for later. But
and then we have Kate Blanchett whispering over it, right? It's gonna be awesome.
Yep, exactly. So I think that's gonna be fantastic.
We got any more questions? We've been going for a while though.
The Folkman brothers are on.
Nice.
Online.
These are the writers.
Fantastic!
Yeah,
oh man.
They were wondering, can Brad get a cameo of his sax playing on the soundtrack? For
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I haven't played. Oh, I haven't played in like 10
You know what?
years.
We can do a duet. I can play the theme. You can play the top
my
part. I'll
God.
write it out.
Nice.
Make some crazy, the Blade Runner like overblown sound. That would be cool. I like that.
If you write it out for me, maybe you know. I go down to your dad's shop and buy some reeds again, and I'll be.
We'll do a little quartet.
Oh, it'd be awful.
Yeah, it would be awful. Nothing like
Wow,
bad
yeah, we're not
saxophone.
doing that. We're not doing that. But sorry.
Next time, the sequel.
Next time, yeah.
Maybe, yeah. Okay, do you want to ask this one? This one seems important.
Yeah. So from our own artist Raz, he said, "Do you guys like the original Conan soundtrack? Is Basil Palladorus, is he at all an inspiration for you guys?"
I'm not even sure that I'm familiar with the original Conan soundtrack. I feel ashamed
I'm
because
glad I didn't hear that. First of all,
Yeah, I know.
No.
And I'm sending you an Amazon gift, gentlemen.
I feel like, yeah.
it's pretty good.
I've definitely I've seen that
seen it
movie a
many
bunch of times
times.
because
I
but
think it's
like,
just Arnold is so just kind of that's the
you
only
can't
thing
even
that
hear the
sticks in
music
your
because
brain.
Arnold is
Because
there.
Arnold is so big.
It's
I mean, so definitely Conan is an inspiration. The music probably would be because I bet it's awesome.
yeah,
It
just subconsciously we
yeah.
don't know it.
Yeah.
It's
Right on.
it's awesome. I
Yeah.
think you would like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's really good.
It's super good.
It's
Very,
really
very
good.
heavy.
Okay, cool. I think we're gonna wrap this up and throw it over to Dan in a minute. But I just so Trifon, like, you have been doing like electronic music with your brother or your cousin. I can't remember who it
it's
is.
so well actually with both. But
it's your brother and your cousin.
So it's my brother. That's where it started. Is him and I working together, and then he lives elsewhere, so it's mainly me, but we still work together on stuff. And my cousin actually, she sings on some of the tracks,
Cool.
on things. But yeah, so it's
Check it out.
Yeah, it's
check it
called
out.
Triphonic,
Triphonic. Yeah,
Triphonic, go check it out.
and it's super sweet.
yeah.
And you guys can
thank
check
you.
it out. And then Brian White. So you just launched a new EP.
New EP, yeah.
So Gas Milk.
Gas Milk.
This is your sort of
Gas
like alter
Milk.
ego.
It's my alter ego. It's
Producer.
like crazy, like indie
That's so cool,
dance,
man.
like '80s throwback
really good.
music.
It's
like
it's really good.
fun
Yeah.
summertime
It's fantastic.
jams.
I spent some time listening to it, and it does
Thank
have
you.
this like
Thank
really
you. Go support
great,
it.
like super
Go buy it on
chill-
Bandcamp,
You can get it for free on Bandcamp,
and
so-
then pay for it. So that
And then support your artist, pay for it.
Yeah.
You guys.
But that's
yeah.
really great, and that just came out on Monday, right?
Yeah,
So
it just
it's
came
like-
out this week. Yeah, brand
awesome.
new. Yeah.
So check that out, support that, and yeah, I want to thank you guys for coming on the show.
Thanks
like
for having us.
Yeah,
it's
thanks for
been
having
so
us.
great talking to you about the music in depth, and thanks for doing a great job on the music. I think it really shows, and
Exceptional.
yeah, we got like
Thank
another
you.
drop coming. I'm looking forward to that, and then we'll just we're gonna tie this thing up into a sweet soundtrack that
Yep.
people can download later. When we ship the video game.
Yep,
right?
the video
That is
game.
the plan.
That is the
Awesome.
plan.
And don't forget your homework. Listen to Conan.
Yeah, listen to Conan.
Homer,
Yeah.
RoboCop.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Robo
yeah.
Palladorus.
Yeah.
Yeah. RoboCop is such a good movie. The original.
Oh man, it's so
Dude,
good.
I
It's
have
so
like
good.
serious nostalgia for '90s action movies, even the bad ones. I saw Bad Boys again the other day.
Oh,
That's
Bad
which is
Boys.
like it's not even good, but it's
Yeah.
great. You know.
It's so bad, it's good.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks
Okay.
for
Yeah,
coming
thanks
by.
so much.
And
Yeah.
I think we're gonna go to a quick break, and then we'll check in with Dan, and we'll just start. So we'll show you a bunch of new stuff from the game. So stick around. Thanks.
All right.
Cool.